a little bit different. As we were talking earlier, JD's in quarantine tonight, and as most of us are trying to practice social distancing and being responsible citizens, it's a little strange for me, I'll be honest, that I don't have a live audience here to be asking questions, but please feel free as we go through this to jump in and ask the questions. I have Mark here, who represents UEI Test Instruments for us in the Indianapolis area in Indiana, who's going to be answering questions along with myself as we go through this. So as we start, this presentation is what can your meter do for you? And as I've learned in my 5 years, I joke, it is still relatively new for this industry, being in here 5 years. There's a lot of longevity. I jokingly call it the Hotel California of industries. It's such a lovely place, but you can never leave. So with that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about UEI Test Instruments. One of the things that I'm very excited about working for UEI Test Instruments is that we are a family-owned business. We've been family-owned and operated since 1954. If you see right behind me, you'll be able to see the picture of Douglas and Betty Kane, who founded Kane in the UK back then. We currently produce about 70% of our products in a factory or facility that we own. And we have just about 200 people in over 7 countries. We're operating on 3 continents, which is pretty exciting. It's a big little business, and I am very proud to be part of it. As I mentioned earlier, I've been with UEI Test Instruments for the last 4.5 years. If you saw my bio as we were going through this, I have a lot of history in customer service and management, and I have a big passion for training and learning and all of that type of stuff. One of the interesting things that I've gotten to do in my time with UEI Test Instruments is the fact that we have done, I've gotten to do some of the light tech support as I've learned going through this. And what I learned through that is there's a lot of questions that you guys have, and we want to be able to answer them, and hopefully this will teach you not only a little bit more about what those symbols on your meters mean, but how you're able to use those in practical applications. So we're going to go ahead, and one of the important things that we like to talk about is that every tool in your bag should make you money. Time is money. We're very conscientious about that. As far as everything goes, you don't make any money on a callback. I actually read a study not too long ago that every time you have to go on a callback, you're actually losing about $300. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like losing money. There's important safety factors and features that you'll see that are built in, not only to our meters, but a lot of our other full line of test equipment going on. The other thing, you guys are working on really high-tech systems. And shouldn't you have the tools that match that? Because when you walk in and you have the tools that match the job that you're doing, customers are going to feel more confident about you and the ability to perform. Warranty, because there is nothing worse to have to do than to have to go back and then try to claim something as under warranty. So wouldn't you like to know that you left that job doing it correctly the first time? So UEI Test Instruments, as you saw from my earlier slides, we've been in business since 1954. We are a full line test equipment line. We do everything from refrigeration to combustion, meters, manometers, and all of that good stuff in between. So the big question that I get when I start talking to contractors, and you can see on my table right here that there's a whole lot of meters sitting there. And how do you choose the right one? What are you looking for? What's important to you when you're doing your job? So this first screen just kind of shows like a good, better, and best as far as our meters go. Literally, if you want a meter that's just going to do your amps, volts, and ohms, I have it. If you want to be able to do everything from your superheat to subcooling, DC amps through the amp clamp, and all of the other things that you may want, we have that meter for you as well. We have a handy little chart on our website that makes it a little bit easier for you as well. You'll be able to go through and figure out what's important. And maybe at this point, it's a little bit too early to decide exactly what's important for you. but we'll be able to go through after this presentation, and you'll be able to pick out the correct meter going on there for you. So one of the things that I've learned during my time, when I was talking earlier, we talked about what do the symbols on the meters actually mean. So we're just literally going to go through what are symbols. So hopefully a few of these look really familiar to you guys and you're using them pretty often, but maybe you didn't know some of the finite points or what makes that meter or why we classify it at that. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about what amps, it's the big A that's going on there for you. You know, whenever you're trying to find out what the motor or the line current is, you're going to be looking at the amps. The next thing is that big V, which is your voltage going on for you. So, you know, when you're doing system board checks and voltage checks, you'll be able to do that. Now, the next one is really important. It's, am I working on AC current or am I working on DC current? And I often get calls about a meter not reading right because somebody will have it on alternating current or they'll have it on DC current and they're working on something DC, but they have it on AC. So we want to make sure that when we're going through, if you see that nice little squiggly line, that's going to be your alternating current, which means that the power is going from one source and coming back. Or you're going to see that solid line with the 3 little dots underneath of it. And apparently that bug came back. Thanks a lot, James. You were supposed to get that for me.
Sorry.
Anyways, I guess this is the joys of live broadcasting for us going on. But so we want to talk a little bit about that DC current. That's going to be your solid line with the 3 dots going on. And that means that you have current only flowing in one direction. And you do have some meters that are going to be able to tell you if it's AC or DC, and it's going to auto choose for you. So one of the biggest questions that I got when I did tech support for a little bit is, what's that upside down horseshoe? And unfortunately, you got to see me do amps, you got to see me do volts. I've yet to figure out a good one for the upside down horseshoe. I generally say it just means the Colts are having a bad season. But that, as we go through, that's actually your resistance and your ohms. And that's going to become really important because your resistance, your ohms, there's a couple of different reasons. One of the best reasons to be using that feature is testing your test leads. And we're going to go into that a little bit later. One of the other common signs that you see, that you'll be able to see, it's right over here, over my shoulder, right there, which is actually capacitance. I've spent a lot of my time standing at counters and going over how do I know the capacitor's bad. It's not uncommon. Well, I'd like to say it's not common, but it happens periodically that you guys will get a capacitor off the shelf and it may not be working. But about the second or third time, some light bulbs should start going off for you. And you should start checking that capacitance and making sure. So make sure you're looking for that symbol, especially AC season is right around the corner from us, which makes me a happy camper. We are ready for that. And it's that time of season where you're going to be checking a lot of capacitors. So capacitance, though, how do you read it? So every capacitor on there is going to have what it's listed as, and you have to know what you're reading it in. So is it in microfarads, nanofarads, those type of things. But you're going to see that actually as one of the ranges on your meters. So that's something important to be able to pay attention to. So I said that we had meters that will do everything. And it is starting to become very important that you'll find many of my meters have the hertz and frequency cycle on it. I'm sorry, the frequency and hertz. But frequency is basically the number of occurrences of a repeating event. There are charts that you will actually find when you open up some of the install guides and you start getting into some of the troubleshooting guides. These are really important when you're working with your variable speed drives and supply power. The next thing is the duty cycle, which kind of works with the frequency and the hertz, but it's the fraction of one period in which a signal is active, and it's commonly expressed in a percentage. Once again, when you're working on those variable speed drives and the supply power, you'll actually find there's a nice little chart that you'll be able to use to make sure that it's functioning correctly for you. Diode testing, as I've recently discovered. So diode testing was something that was really important in the field, and you had to do it, test small voltages between the leads. It was something that wasn't as important, but as boards are getting more and more complex, I'm starting to see more of the diode testing going out there. And if you remember earlier, I mentioned, what's that upside down horseshoe and why would you want to use it? Well, continuity is a very important thing. It's going to tell you if you have any unbroken paths. It's going to tell you if the wiring maybe is like wearing down and those type of things. It's also going to tell you if your test leads are bad. So if I had a live audience here, I would ask you, how many of you guys have checked the continuity of your test leads lately? And I'll tell you from all of the classes that I've taught that it's typically about less than 25% of people raise their hand and say, oh yeah, I've checked the continuity. There's a lot of heads turning and looking at each other going, I didn't know we could do that. And that's common. But one of the things that's really important, because I would like to think that all of you guys take your tools, and I don't have them up here, but all of our meters come with nice little bags where you can put your test leads in your meter. And I'd like to think that all of you guys take your meters and you very gingerly take them out of the van and you walk them over to what the job that you're working on is. You use them, you make sure to wipe them down, make sure there's no dirt, grime, anything on them, and you put them back in the bag, and then you walk them and very nicely place them back into the truck. And I've been told 100% of the time that's how it works. No, it's not. What happens is as we talked at the beginning of this, time is money. And so we're working as fast as we can. You get done with the job, you throw the meter in the bag, it gets thrown in the back of the truck. But what happens is your test leads start getting a little bit broken, a little bit worn down, and that can be really problematic for you. So I urge you, every now and then, take your test leads, put it on the continuity, hold those test leads together. If you hear a beep, that means you're good. If you don't hear a beep, it means it's time to check those test leads and get some new ones. The next symbol that you're going to see on there is Ncv Non-Contact Voltage. If you remember at the beginning of this, I mentioned that there are things on these meters that could literally save your lives. So how many times have you gone to a job site and they said, oh yeah, it's blah, blah, blah breaker, and you switch that breaker off only to find out that somebody was like my dad and mislabeled them and you didn't know it. So you want to make sure that you're checking and making sure there's no power. So hopefully there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. The majority of the meters that you see right in front of me all have non-contact voltage built right into the tip. At the very least, be carrying a non-contact voltage detector that'll show you if you have power or not. So very, very important. Always check. Even if you think something or you know it's your own house and you labeled everything, go ahead and double check. Just make sure, because this could literally save your life. So one of the other important functions, especially when you're in that HVAC world, is going to be your temperature. So hopefully everybody out there, if you're working on air conditioning or you're doing some of the refrigeration and stuff like that, hopefully you guys have our Hub 6 manifold. But if you don't, most of my meters will actually allow you to do your temperature. So you're going to be able to do your temperature calculations, as well as doing and with those temperature calculations, you're going to be doing your superheat and subcooling, which means that you're going to need to know your delta T going on there. So if you notice Fahrenheit versus Celsius, I'm going to make a general assumption and assume that everyone in this that's watching this today is probably going to be reading it in Fahrenheit, unless we've gotten one of our friends from the north in Canada who likes to read things in this Celsius watching with us. But so, I've also seen where you thought you had it in Fahrenheit, but it really read Celsius, because there is nothing worse than saying, oh, it's 10 degrees, and finding out that's Celsius, not Fahrenheit. That's a world of difference. So something to make sure. The other thing is that there's a couple of different types of thermocouples out there. There's a thermocouple, or there's a thermistor. Most of these meters are going to work with a thermocouple, but you can find thermistors when you're trying to bleed out some of the extra power that's going on around you. So be cautious, look at it. A thermistor is going to give you a little bit more accurate reading, but a thermocouple is going to be a lot more versatile in the jobs that you're doing. So other things that are really important on your meter are actually the min and the max button. That way, if you're doing something, you're actually able to capture the minimum or the maximum as you're going through. Because unfortunately, not everything is continuous. So you're going to have points where you're going to see the ups and the downs, and that's where those min-maxes become important. Auto ranging versus manual ranging is also something important when you're picking out your meter. Auto ranging is great because you don't have to think about what range you're really working on. But when you turn a meter into manual ranging, it's actually going to give you a much faster reading because it's not trying to differentiate all of that stuff for you. The next thing that's really important is your auto power off. None of us really love going to the store. Well, maybe you do, but none of us really love going to the store to go buy batteries. So making sure if you do have an auto power off, that you don't actually turn that off and then wind up with a dead meter when you go to get it, which is also why the next thing is very important. Paying attention to that low battery symbol is going to make your life a lot easier. And since none of us like going to the store to get batteries, one of the important things, though, to know is that all of our meters either use AA or AAA batteries. We wanted to make them as accessible for you wherever you may buy your batteries, that it would be a battery that you'd be able to have in stock. So we were talking earlier about the mins and the maxes, but you can also hold and capture a value to be able to do that, which is why that hold button's there. And if you are lucky enough to have one of our meters that has wireless capability, like the DL429, you'll see a little link button, which is what's going to connect it to that Bluetooth capability for you. So if you see a meter, specifically mine, that has that little symbol going on there for you, that is going to be your link. Oh, absolutely. It is right there for you. Get a nice little picture of that. Absolutely. So I think I mentioned this before. This is actually my first time in the Jackson studios, and I'm really excited to be here. But it still does feel a little bit strange with everybody being out there. So as we keep going through, don't hesitate to put in any of those questions or anything like that. I have some very knowledgeable guys that are off screen here to help out with some of those questions. And as we continue going, the next thing up is talking about the resolution. There's a lot of different resolutions that you may be reading something in. So it's really important if you're in the big M, the little k, or the backwards U. So earlier when we were talking about capacitance, we were talking about, is it measured in microfarads? Is it measured in nanofarads, and those type of things. So if you were to use that auto ranging or that manual ranging function on your meter, make sure that you have it in the right resolution. Just quickly go over a couple of the warnings that you may see on your meter. So you may see something that says overloaded, range exceeded. That's that OL. That means that you're really using your meter on something that it's way higher than what it's rated for, which hopefully will also lead to you getting a little warning or caution sign going on. We really don't want you guys, and I don't know how well you can see it over my shoulder that all of these slides going on. But, you know, there are dangerous levels. And, you know, in some cases, you have to know if it's safe to disconnect from some of the live conductors. So those symbols you can see over here over my left shoulder going on. And one of the other things that I tend to get a lot of questions for actually have to do with the category ratings. So if you were to look at my meters and anybody's meters, really, you're going to see that there's category ratings. And what do those category readings really mean to you? They're really important. So for most of the stuff that we would be working on, we'd be working on category 3. But when you look at that chart, you'll see I have a lot of category 4 meters. And one of the reasons for having a meter beefier than what you're actually working on is another safety precaution. So I want to take a moment and actually explain a little bit different than what the slides say, to kind of give you a little bit of a visual about the category 4, category 3, and category 2.
Got some questions.
Oh.
A question. Ronald asks, do any of your meters do inrush current? He says, I have used max function, but some meters have both functions, and I am not sure what the difference is.
So, great question, Ronald. Yes, we do have inrush capability on several of our meters. A couple of them to just kind of show for a quick moment is our DL429 and our DL489 both offer your inrush current for you. That max feature is really nice. But inrush current, it'll actually even catch it a little bit quicker for you than what that max feature could do. The reason that we added that inrush current is because it is such a snap blip in time that sometimes even maxes would miss it. So we do offer several meters that will do that for you. And if you have any other questions, please reach out and we'll be happy to help you. So we're going to go on to the category ratings. And, you know, I had a presentation where I showed you really, really cute pictures of cats, but somehow that got nixed in the professional version. So I know, right? Everybody loves cats. Everybody wants cat pictures right now. So maybe you're bored and you want to send these guys some cat pictures too. I think that'll work in the question section. Show them your favorite cat that might be sitting with you watching this presentation. But the cat rating, seriously, it's important. So the best way that I've been able to understand the cat rating is, so I'm going to start backwards. We're going to start with category 4. Category 4 is what's going from the power line to the box. Category 3 is from the box to the outlet. Category 2 is going to be from the outlet to the actual appliance that you're working on. So, you know, typically we're going to be working on Cat 3 unless we're doing some of the higher, more industrial features. But you may notice that, you know, something like my DL479, which will do all of the functions that you need, is actually rated Category 4, and that's for your safety. Without you guys, we don't have a business, and we're all in a lot of hurt without our HVAC contractors. So we want to make sure that you're being safe with the job. So when you're looking at the meters, at minimum, you're going to need Category 3. If you can find a Category 4, it can be an extra piece of protection for you. So we have some listing agents. I'm going to kind of just step to the other side. Little strange in here. As I said, not used to quite doing this. But, you know, we want to make sure that all of our meters have been tested by the different listing agencies. So most commonly, you'll see the UL rating. Any meter that you pick up, I urge you to look and make sure that it does have some sort of listing agent on it. And the reason for that is, once again, safety. Your safety is very important to us. And when it has a different listing agent, what that means is that it has actually been independently tested. So it's one thing for me to tell you that my meter's safe. It's another thing that it's gone through another level of testing that's independent, to give you that extra peace of mind. So most commonly, you'll see either the UL or the ETL going on as far as your meters go. You may see some other ones on ours because we are international and there's different testing for different countries and regulations. So such as the CE marking is another one. That's actually our manufacturer that we've made it to the EC directives, which you'll find most commonly to our friends to the north or across the pond. Another important thing that sometimes we think about, sometimes we don't, as I talk to guys out there in the field, but it actually has to be with an IP rating. IP is actually short for ingress protection. And what does ingress protection and why is that important to you? Because that's actually going to tell you how dust resistant or how water resistant your meter is. So the first digit is the size, is actually has to do with dust exposure. The second digit indicates the level of exposure to liquids. So while I would never say any of these are waterproof, I can say something is splash proof based on the IP rating. So if you ever see that on any of your tools, that's what it is referring to. And now I want to take it a little bit back to the basics. So we talked about what all of these symbols are. So you got your volts, your amps, and the Colt's doing poorly, also known as your ohms. And that's where we're going to go back to Ohm's law. So hopefully at some point, we may be digging back into everybody's careers. You learned the Ohm's law chart. It's a pretty easy chart once you understand it. So Ohm's law, as long as you know two of the values, you'll always be able to come up with the third one. So if you know your amps and your ohms, as you see by the big circle back there, if you multiply your amps and your ohms, you'll be able to get your volts. So the easy way is look at the chart, cover up with your thumb whatever you think or the value that you need calculated, and it'll walk you through, do I divide or do I multiply? Luckily, though, could you imagine how long our jobs would be if we actually had to go and do that for every single thing? If we only had a meter that told us two of those components, we would have to go through. So once again, it's why a multimeter is nice. It's going to be able to calculate all of that for you. Yes?
Yeah, I got a question. Richard asks, he wants to know if you can increase the backlight time on the 429B.
No. Unfortunately, there's not a way to extend the length. I think the question is are you having it go out too short, and have you checked your batteries? I have seen where it will decrease the length of time on the 429 if your batteries are starting to go low, because it's going to start conserving some of that for you. So, any other questions? Send them in. As you see, these guys, and hopefully, have we gotten any cat pictures yet?
Not yet, but we're standing by.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure, just in case. And then there's the wheel of electricity. Not quite as exciting as the Wheel of Fortune to me, but a very important piece of our lives. So as you start getting into the more diagnostic things, or if you're trying to calculate watts, you'd be able to use the wheel of electricity, and you'd be able to calculate, if you know two of the values, you can calculate out more. So the good news is if you are getting into that much diagnostics, I have meters that are going to be able to help you out with that over here to my right. So we can kind of go through those in just a little bit. one of the other things that I found has been really important is true RMS. And I find that true RMS is something that we throw around a lot, but why is it really important? So, if you've ever talked to somebody, or maybe you're that person who you always liked using an analog meter, right? Because you could see instantaneously how that meter worked. That's basically what true RMS is showing you. It's showing you a more instantaneous read of what's going on. So I want you to picture, and I apologize I don't have it in the slide form, but I want you to kind of picture a little bit of a sine wave going on. And an average sensing meter could be taking a measurement down at the bottom, it could be at the top, it could be, and that's great when we're working on something that's standard. You're going to get your reading, you're going to be pretty close, life's going to be good. But what happens when you have something, or you've introduced something like a dimmer switch? And who doesn't love having a dimmer switch in their house, right? But dimmer switches cause dirty power. And you suddenly might start seeing little drops, little things that are going on beyond the normal sine wave. And that's where the true RMS is going to come in. Because that true RMS is actually going to show you those little blips that happen below the normal sine wave. When you do the measurements, you're actually going to find out that true RMS is going to be 30% more accurate for you than what, or in that range, than an average sensing meter. And that's really important because right now, with all the high efficiency equipment that we're using, and variable speed motors, we really need to know what everything is working in real time. We need to know if there's energy distortion, or as I called, dirty power earlier. Because if we have something that's not working properly, it can overheat and fail, which is not great. But in some cases, it can actually cause a meltdown or fire. And that, once again, is something that we don't want to deal with, is we don't want to be called back to a job site because something's not there anymore. That's not fun for us. It's not fun for our insurance. And it's sure as heck not fun for our customer at the end of the day. So, true RMS meters, how they're able to do that is they actually kind of slow down the signal and then continuously sample it to provide that accurate reading. Pretty much everything, once again, is going to those variable speed motors. And one of the reasons people didn't really go for true RMS in the beginning is it was a lot more expensive. Kind of think of like those flat screen TVs when they first came out. They were kind of they were on the pricey end, and now think about it that you can't get a flat screen or something other than a flat screen TV, and that the price has really dropped. So it's really, for me, it makes the most amount of sense that you should go with one that has true RMS. It's affordable now, it's going to be more accurate, and it's going to save you time in the long run. So, this would be another time that I would normally ask for a raise of hands, is how many people have ever looked at the wiring diagram. Oh, good, I do have one. Whether he's lying to me or not, I don't know. But the wiring diagram is your friend, right? So maybe we're used to looking at it probably into how do I wire the thermostat? Am I putting it in correctly? But that wiring diagram, when you really get into it, shows you all of the points that you can test. So when you look at a furnace one, you'd be able to see where you can pull your amp draws, and it's going to show you a lot of other things. You can look at where the flame sensors are wired in and those type of things. So I urge you, if you haven't taken a minute, check out that wiring diagram. Yes?
Yes, question. Alex would like to know, and this is a very topical question here. This is regarding coronavirus, checking for employees and customers. He asked, will the INF165C, sorry, I can't talk tonight.
It's okay.
Reasonably accurately measure body temperature?
Great question. And I would not recommend using it as your sole testing. There's been a lot of talk about that. The CDC, I believe it's like their guidelines for accuracy have to do with you have to be, I believe, within 0.5 Celsius. So it's a very small number that you have to be within. It doesn't quite fall within the specs. If you're using it as a quick check, you can kind of get a baseline. Is it ideal for that? The answer is no.
Thank you.
Yes. So hopefully that answered that. I do hope that everybody is being safe out there. We appreciate you guys. I know all of the contractors out there watching today. You guys are going in and out of a lot of places, and I want to say thank you. In the coming weeks, it's going to be really important. And if we get this heat wave that's expected around, I know your services are going to be called upon. So please be safe out there while you're doing it. Ask the homeowners all the pertinent questions and hopefully have the right protocol in place as we navigate these newly uncharted waters right now. So, some of the practical applications with the meters. Checking the outlet, testing the blower motor, flame rectification, continuity, capacitors, board issues, and gas valves. Because there is nothing worse, and the reason that I listed all of these functions for you is because there is nothing worse than if you didn't check those and having to go back to your wholesaler and say something wasn't working, and it turns out that it was actually X, Y, or Z. So we want to make sure that we're doing the due diligence. It's going to make you look better to the customer because you've gone through the testing rather than just saying, oh, and I know many of you very well know exactly what it is, but being able to test and show that you tested is very important. So I want to make sure that we're doing that. And then startup sheets. So I'm going to guess if I had a live audience today and I asked everybody how many have a meter in their bag, that every one of you is raising your hand. And the only reason that you're not raising your hand is because maybe you just started in the industry and you just haven't purchased it yet. Or you ran over it because you were just really angry and it got left in a driveway. Other than that, hopefully everybody has a meter in their bag. Having the right tools in your bag is going to become increasingly more essential, especially when you start looking at the equipment that you're doing. A lot of those manufacturers are requiring that we have different startup sheets and that you actually have to know what the amp draw is, what the voltage is. In some cases, they're asking for airflow. They're going to ask for different pressures, those type of things. And hopefully at those points when you start going through that, you'll remember that UEI is the full test equipment line, that we're going to be able to do everything from refrigeration and combustion. Yes, we have another question.
Yes, got another question here. Alex asks, and you might have some insight on this, and hopefully it's not running over it as you said earlier. What is the most frequent misuse of a meter that destroys it?
Using it as a hammer.
I feel like you're not totally joking.
I am not totally joking. That is actually one of the most common things. I didn't, and using it as a hammer is actually one of the best ways to destroy your meter.
Got it. Well, that's it for now.
All right. Well, if we have follow-up questions, so if you learned anything, it's not a hammer. It's not a hammer. Or honestly, the other thing that I'll see is test leads getting destroyed for using them, trying to turn things. I know we get in pinches sometimes. And it seems like a quick fix, but that's a good way to ruin your test leads as well. So kind of gone through why having a meter is going to be important. Still no cat pictures?
Not yet.
Oh, man. I was kind of hoping that we were going to get some.
I know, right?
I know. All right. That's fine. I'll just have to send you all grumpy cat pictures later.
We do have another question here, though.
All right.
No, it's not a cat picture, but the next best thing.
A dog picture?
So Jeff asks, of all the latest meters available, so I'm assuming the ones you have there, what is the most versatile?
The most versatile is going to be one of what I call our super meters, which are going to be our DL429B or our DL489. And the reason that I say that is it's going to be able to do every function that you want, including DC amps through the amp clamp. So that's a really important thing. When I was talking earlier about DC amps, those are really important with all those variable speed drives and ECM motors that are out there. So you may be looking at this and trying to decide what is the difference. They look pretty much the same, right? Except one's black and one's yellow. So the black one is a throwback to our 50th anniversary. UEI Test Instruments color was originally black, so we did a nice little throwback there, and included the DC amps. The 429B also adds the wireless capability, so you're able to log, store, and record all of your results right from your meter. So earlier when I was talking about being able to do something like a blower door test, and you actually have to shut that blower door, you're able to put that meter in and you're able to read your results right there. So that's a really nice thing. I've also found it very useful for new technicians who are on the job. They can actually record what's going on. When they're recording that, they can actually send it off to somebody else to be able to take a look at it and go from there. Do we have another question?
Nope. I'm just going to make a comment with regards to versatility. The versatility of meters would be your traditional box meter, like you have there on your right, that's commonly referred to as just a multimeter, versus the clamp on, and kind of the difference in there. And your clamp on a lot of times is more versatile because you've got a higher amperage range that that you can work with because it's picking up that sensed amperage versus having to run through the leads.
Yes. So thank you, Mark. So I will tell you guys there is something to be said. I'm glad to have Mark over here to my right. I know he's off camera and you're not seeing him, but Mark comes with many years of experience out there for me and has been a great mentor to me during my time in this industry. So I am glad to have him here answering questions for us. As far as that goes, any other? Oh.
Yep. Actually, we do have another question just came in from Stephen, and he wants to know if the Bluetooth meter interfaces with MeasureQuick.
So the Bluetooth meter, it measures, it interfaces with the iManifold. It does not interface with MeasureQuick. Mm-hmm. All right. So as far as we go, let's talk a little bit about the... Oh, how long have we gone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you were done or not.
Nope. I was just going to kind of briefly go through a quick synopsis of the meter line here, just so you guys know. I'm going to back up the slides here for a little bit to that big chart that we have going on way back in the beginning. So, big long chart and trying to figure it out. So we were talking about meters. I love my super meters. I can't say enough about these because they are literally going to do every feature function that you could possibly want in a meter realm. However, I also know that sometimes that can be a little bit on the overwhelming side. It can be a little bit, you know what, I'm never ever going to do that. That's not what I need to do with my job. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of our other meter lines going on here. So when we were talking about category ratings, we recently did come out with a meter that is going to be your category 4, which is the DL479, which is a traditional HVAC meter going on. What's really nice about the DL479, and you'll actually notice it about a lot of our meters, is that we love putting magnets on things. We also love putting on work lights and backlights on anything that we possibly can to make your job a little bit easier. That way you can just put it up, hold it, and you're going to be good there. It does have temperature. As I mentioned, this is a category 4 meter, so it does require having the banana clip connector to it. Once again, that banana clip is really more of a safety feature for you. Going on, some lines that you guys might really remember is the Phoenix line. It's been one of our most popular selling lines for many, many years now. Sometimes, you know, a good standard is one of those important things, but you'll see our DL369, 79B, and 389. So you may wonder what's the differences between those. And one of the important differences is so the 369 is going to do most of what you want, but you're not going to get temperature in it. The 379B is going to do temperature, but the 389 is going to add that, and it's actually the DL389B now. It's going to add your temperature capability, but true RMS capability. So, moving on, Mark mentioned earlier that we do have some box meters. Sometimes guys like box meters. One, it's the more traditional route. Two, you may be using your meter more than just on the HVAC side of things. So I do want to let you know that we do have our DM505, which is just going to be your basic box meter. But you can move to your DM515, which is going to add temperature for you. It's also going to add true RMS capability, once again, which is, I think, really important out there in the industry for you. And then, if you're that guy who does a lot of diagnostics, and hopefully there's a few of you guys out there watching tonight, we have the DM525. So, one of the things that you might notice on the 525 is that it does have a link feature, which means there's an app that you can find. And by the way, any of these apps that you see with our tools, you're going to be able to download whether you're in the Apple Store or in the Google Play Store. So they're both available. But it's not only going to add that, it's going to add that you're going to be able to actually be able to do the power factor and the low Z factor on there as well. And if you think that sounds all overwhelming and maybe a lot in the meter realm, I have the meter for you. It's the DL200. Now, this is probably one of the easiest meters to be able to use. So what's really nice about this DL200, if you notice, it doesn't look quite like all the other meters. It doesn't have a little dial on there. It just has a nice little 3-button slide right there. So all it's going to do is your amps, your volts, and your ohms. But check this out. We're going to have them go up just a little bit more. It has a patented sliding jaw hook. So now you can get into some of those tighter, more confined spots, and you're going to get a more accurate read because it's going to go right through the amp clamp. So check that out. We have a wide range for you. And do we have any other questions before we... Nope.
Not at this time.
Not at this time? All right, guys. So I don't know if they have a contact link or anything like that at the end of it. But feel free to reach out to Jackson Systems if you have any questions. Or you can email me at Louise K, Louise, the letter K, at ueitest.com, and I'll be happy to answer any of those questions. Well, there's a familiar face.
Yeah, here I'm back. I'm sorry, I didn't want to rush you off there.
You didn't bring any canes or anything.
No,
All right.
the Sandman from the Apollo.
All right.
Well, thank you so much. There's a lot of information there. And don't forget, folks, that we were able to record that, so you can always go back and watch it retroactively. We have this video and all the videos that we do available at jacksonsystems.com, our website, under training, so make sure you check that out. And we have, we'll have that there in perpetuity for as far as I know. Now, a couple things. There's a promotion going on these products where I think it's 5% off on all these things right now, and I don't know how long that lasts, so take advantage while you can. And the coupon is actually in the on the website, the Resource Center. That's what it is, the Resource Center. So make sure you get that coupon, download it, print it off, and use that. And you can always just give us a call at 888-652-9663. We here at Jackson Systems will help you get these on your trucks and in your guys' hands and answer any questions you might have. And don't forget, we're going to be doing this all throughout this spring. I think it's once a week. So we've got one at the same time next week, next Thursday at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So thank you again. Great job. Appreciate it. Hopefully you'll come back here soon, you and Mark. Thank you, Mark, for helping me back there behind the scenes. So for all of us, have a wonderful evening. I'm James with Jackson Systems. We'll see you next time.